Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is A Vision Entertainment Media Broadcast. Once again, I am your host, Tommy. We have a special guest on the show. This is Geoffrey Mark. Critics have called Geoffrey Mark a walking encyclopedia of show business history. He's an author, he's a writer, producer, singer, and actor. Born in Brooklyn, Mark, how are you, man? I'm sorry, Geoffrey Mark, how are you?
I am fine. Happy to
That's
be here with you.
Oh man, likewise, it's a pleasure. I know it's a little fast, but we doing it. We here. The fans going to find out who you are if they don't already know. So just tell me, just a little bit about yourself, Jeff.
Well, good heavens, where to start? I call myself the luckiest son of a bitch on the planet. I met the
Yeah.
love of my life my first day of high school.
Mhm.
So I knew true love at 13. My career started at 15, and
Okay.
I've been at this 48 years now.
Right.
So you know how old I am. I don't lie about it. It is
I
wonderful at this age to still be wanted in the business, to still be working hard, as a matter of fact.
That's right.
I've got 3 books I'm working on at the same time. My weekly radio show, Geoffrey Mark the Apollo Theater. What a wonderful thing. Geoffrey Mark plays Ella, where every week
Right.
we
That's right. Mhm.
play Ella's songs on a theme. And I tell you what's cool and groovy about it backstage, because I helped with Ella at the very late part of her career, and I've written
Okay.
2 books about her.
Yeah, Ella.
Um, yeah, so I'm doing that. I'm recording an album this summer. Geoffrey Mark sings the Ella Fitzgerald songbook. So
Mm-hmm.
between all of that, and by the time you see this, I will have opened my new nightclub act in Palm Springs,
Wow.
and starting the tour again. The world is opening up. So
The tour is
busy,
tomorrow,
busy,
right?
busy. Well, the tour is as we are recording this. The tour starts tomorrow. Yes.
Wow. So you're busy. You're busy right now.
But
Yep.
I'm happy to be with you, and I'm happy to see the Apollo Theater logo, because it was so big in Ella's career, and
Yeah,
so many other incredibly talented people's careers.
that's right. That's right. And also, did you ever perform at the Apollo? Well, you did say you was at the Apollo, right? Years ago?
Oh, I've been there, of course,
Yeah.
but no, I've never. The Apollo Theater was more mixed racially back in the 30s.
Okay.
It today focuses on, and I support this 100%. They really focus on African American talent,
Yeah.
young African American talent, and
Mhm.
yay, a place where people can go and learn and get famous
That's right.
and be supported by their community. So uh, yay for. We were going to do something, actually, when my last Ella Fitzgerald book came out. We were going to
Mhm.
do a benefit night that just, it's one of those things where you make plans, they kind of disappear. So we
Mhm.
were going to do a benefit night for Ella there, and it just didn't happen. Show business,
Wow.
that happens sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it does. And like I said, you wear many hats, and
And they all sparkle.
they all sparkle. And also, you have appeared off Broadway. Not only appeared, but the biggest star on Broadway.
You are confusing 2 things.
Okay.
I starred off Broadway
Okay.
in 5 shows. The
Wow.
biggest star on Broadway is the name of the book I wrote about Ethel Merman, who was the biggest
Okay.
star
The
on
biggest star
Broadway.
on Broadway. So this is a book that I'm talking about.
Yes,
Right?
sir. A very
Okay.
well received book. It is the only book that talks about the literal 48-hour marriage of Ethel Merman and Ernest Borgnine, and what
Okay.
really happened.
So this is a true
So,
story.
oh, good heavens, yes.
Wow. So what made you write that book about that? About
You
them?
know, um, I talked to you off camera and off mic that I'm 33 years clean and sober.
Yeah.
There came a period in my 20s where drugs and alcohol got me.
Okay.
And when I got sober at 30, I desperately wanted my career back. Like, where do you start?
Hmm.
And I was an East Coast person. I was now on the West Coast. And I thought, oh gosh, going back to nightclubs and plays and touring, could my sobriety stand up to that, constant round of being
Environment once again. Yeah.
and being turned down? You audition for a whole bunch of stuff and you do 30 auditions and you get one. And I thought, what can I do where I won't get daily see ya? Well, if I write a book, nobody can turn me down till I'm done.
That's
And
right.
I wrote the first book about Ella Fitzgerald, and it sold and it became a bestseller. And that led to a Grammy nomination and an Emmy Award. And the world opened up for me again. I like to write about, if I'm writing books, people who are the best at what they do.
Hmm.
Ella Fitzgerald was the greatest female singer in history, certainly the greatest jazz singer ever.
Okay.
Ethel Merman was the queen of Broadway musicals. She starred in, I'm unimaginable today, 15 hit Broadway musicals, introduced 45 songs that became standards. Nobody is ever going to come close to that kind of a record again.
That's right. That's right.
Lucille Ball, there is no one funnier than Lucille Ball.
Lucille
There is no
Ball.
sitcom better than I Love Lucy.
Hmm.
So those are the kinds of things I write about. So I've got the new Lucy book coming out next year.
Hmm.
I have a book I'm writing with Wink Martindale and his wife about their lives and experiences. And my memoirs are coming out also next year. It's a wonderful book. I've called my memoirs The Devil Was Born in Brooklyn.
The Devil Was Born in Brooklyn. Can you give me just a little synopsis or just a little bit of that book? Like, what is it about?
The book is about having an unfortunate childhood. Both of my parents were mentally ill. My father
Oh.
was mentally, physically, and sexually abusive. My life in show business, my life with my partner, who we lost 3 years ago, meeting him at 13 and having a life with him all these years, that was a secret. Nobody knew we were a couple for almost 50 years. That's a story.
Hmm.
Getting clean and sober is a story. And then the incredible, luckiest son of a bitch on the planet, the incredible celebrities I have known and worked with and loved and in some cases gotten into bed with. So it's all of that mixed together. It's my life.
Wow. So Hollywood was like it's an open place. So basically, it's like did your life with the drugs and the alcohol, did it start there in Hollywood or
No, it
just coming
ended
up?
there.
It
Interestingly, it ended there. My drugs, because of my age, and when I was thrown out of the house at 15. So from
oh,
15 forward, I was on my own. Thrown out because of Joel, mostly. Joel was my partner. And I went into show business.
mhm,
Well, in New York, and this is back in the 1970s, if you were under 45, reasonably good looking, had any kind of an income, drugs and sex were everywhere. It was the Studio 54 days.
wow.
It was the time of sex clubs and bathhouses and porn theaters all over Manhattan. And what was going on in the audience was hotter than what was going up on the screen.
Hmm.
It was just an open town. And if you were a young, healthy person who wasn't bad looking, and I was kind of handsome when I was young,
Yeah.
um, you couldn't walk to the supermarket without being offered sex or a chance to get high. And because Joel and I never lived together, it's a very complicated story. He wouldn't come out, he wouldn't deal with who he was. So he got married, he had children. And I should say we have children because I'm their stepfather now. And through him, I have a wonderful daughter, Julia, and a lousy son, Matt, who isn't speaking to any of us, and two great grandsons, not great grandsons, but they're great grandsons,
Hmm.
Ben and Abe. So my personal life, I'm the luckiest son of a bitch on the planet.
Wow. And you also, like I said, you have a million jobs, man. How do you tangle or handle all of this and still try to provide for not provide. and still try to do for your family and just spend time with other people, but you have a bunch of jobs, man.
You make priorities. Look, show business is a very mercurial place. You know this. You could make, I'll make up a figure. You can make $250,000 one week. And then 18 months later is the next paycheck. So you have to take every opportunity that comes along, massage it, work it, sign the contract, and hope the check clears. So you have to keep throwing stuff up at the wall, because sequins and jewelry are expensive, and children and grandchildren are expensive, and getting old is expensive. So I work as hard as I can. There will come a day where I'll have to retire or really, really cut back. There'll come a day when my singing voice will start to deteriorate, or I won't have the memory to do an hour of stand-up, or I'll get arthritis and I can't type anymore. It'll come because we all age. For now, knock on wood, I don't know if you can hear that in the background.
Yeah, I heard it in the background.
I can do all those things, and I'll do them until I can't. And when I can't, I'm hoping that by the time I can't, new love will come into my life, and I'll get to watch my grandchildren grow up and sing at their weddings and enjoy the memories of being the luckiest son of a bitch on the planet.
Hear that? And you also sang and did stand-up comedy at a New York nightclub and cabarets.
Many.
And also,
No, it was funny.
As well as cruise ships.
I was allowed to get up and perform in the Catskills in New York when I was 9. So that was my nightclub debut. This is one of those stories that's like, you can't make this stuff up. Comedian needed a kid to work with him. And there I was, this redheaded, really smart, really cute kid who had talent. That was my first nightclub gig. He came out to California many years later, changed his name to Christopher Weeks, and became a sitcom actor. And as lives happen, I found myself one evening at dinner with him. And we started talking. Where do you come from? New York. Oh, yeah, I worked in New York. Oh, I love the Catskills. Oh. And the name of the hotel, again, you can't make this up. The name of the hotel was Homo Whack. Now, all of you listening, I'll give you 3 seconds to come up with your own punchlines, because who names a hotel Homo Whack? Okay?
Yeah.
Just make your own up. Well, we figured it out. He was the comedian and I was the kid. So, 40 years later, there we were having dinner together. But I started doing the cabaret circuit in New York as a teenager. And my first, where I wasn't just like singing a song, I was getting up and doing a whole act, was a place called the Duplex in Greenwich Village in New York. And they were very nice, the owners. They liked me. They came and saw me do some stuff. They believed in me. So they got up, and we had a full house. And this not a terribly big nightclub, but we were filled. And, folks, Lily Tomlin and Joan Rivers and Dick Cavett and Bill Cosby all got their starts in our little club. And we've sent so many people on ahead. And we've got this young man who we think is just going to be blah, 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 blah. Ladies and gentlemen, Geoffrey Mark. He got both names wrong.
Wow. Yeah.
And had I had any experience, the entire hour would have been about how he got the two names wrong. But I had no experience playing, I had my act rehearsed and I had no room for playtime. But that's how I got started. You go from one club to the other and you get better and better. And you end up working at the Playboy Club. And that was an experience working there too.
Wow. Yeah. And you also was a proud recipient of an Emmy Award also, and a Grammy nomination. Correct?
I'm terrible at this backward stuff, but over this shoulder, you can see the Emmy. It's sitting.
Now I see it. It's right there.
Right by the flowers. The Grammy I keep hidden because it's too easy to steal.
Wow. Okay.
That I would notice it going out of the house. The Grammy is only, this big and, not very easy to put into someone's purse or pocket. So that gets kept separately.
How was that moment like winning the Emmy Award? Like, how did you feel going up there and in front of all those people like that?
It was gratifying because it wasn't a competitive Emmy. This came about because when 9/11 happened, and again, right place, right time, luckiest son of a bitch on the planet. I was working on, and had been working on, the 50th anniversary I Love Lucy special as a special consultant and working with the producer. He was that year going to be the producer of the Emmy Awards, and he'd
Mhm.
never done it before. Again, because I wear many hats, concurrently, I was working with the president of the Television Academy on a TV movie that never happened, but we were working together. Well, Television Academy guy just got started and had never been in charge of the Emmy Awards. Producer guy had never done the Emmy Awards, and they didn't know each other,
So, yeah.
and they couldn't figure out. I mean, this is right after 9/11. The Emmys got canceled and eventually put on much smaller than usual. For my help in making all of that happen, I got a special Emmy Award. So I think I almost like it better that way because I didn't have to compete. Nobody had to lose for me to win.
Wow.
I kind of like that.
There was no competition at all. It's just something that, was given to you.
Where the Grammy was competitive.
Yes. Okay.
And you realize, that's why I don't like watching award shows much or going to them. I had a friend of mine be my escort because Joel wouldn't even go to that with me. He was afraid people would see us together. Internalized homophobia is almost a sickness unto itself. I couldn't change it with him. So I took a buddy. We went out to lunch the day of. And right in the middle of pancakes, I said to him, you know what? I am no longer responsible for anything I say or do for the rest of this day. I was in such a panic about this thing, the enormity of it. I have been nominated for a Grammy Award, and I don't know how many years earlier I was so stoned I couldn't even write my name. And you go there, and there's just these hundreds and hundreds of people. And for the Grammys, they give you a gold medallion from Tiffany's for being a nominee. So everyone who's a nominee is wearing this thing around your neck, and everybody is congratulating you, and you lose your mind. I understand now, and I'm not talking about what happened at the Academy Awards. That's a different thing. Yeah. But I understand why when we watch these award shows and people get up to accept the awards and they're humming, I understand why they can't get words out, because you lose your mind going to these things.
Is this from all the drinking and just because when you're sitting there at the table, do they actually give you guys bottles of wine just to drink all day while you're there, or just
no?
Okay.
The Academy Awards this year was a little different in that the nominees were put into tables and chairs, and they were glug 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 glug. Normally, these things are held in theaters where you're sitting in a theater seat. There's no liquor, there's no food, there's no table. You're in like an audience member. And then if your name is called, you get up out of your seat, you come down the aisle. All of the nominees are seated on the aisle so you can get up easily and get up to the podium and accept your award. This year, I hope they've realized that getting their people all liquored up is dumb. And this is what happens when you do that.
Wow. Now is it true about those Grammy Awards and the Academy, the Oscars, because it's in Hollywood, that is a lot of wickedness behind the scenes when you're involved in that environment? Like, do you have to do certain things to get higher standards, or is that like?
Are you asking me if I slept my way to the top?
No. I'm saying, no. Is it like that where you have to do certain things to get to the top? Not just anybody that want to make it. Is it like that in Hollywood?
I think just like the idea of like an old time movie star being discovered sitting at a drugstore counter and we'll make you a star, which is bullshit. I hope I can say bullshit on your show. Okay. The idea that we go to auditions and take our clothes off and pay people off financially and go to these orgies. Most of the people I've ever met will say the same thing. Where are they? I'd love to go. Where are they? Because if you're working in Hollywood, if you're on a TV series or you're on a film, you're working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Where do you have time to go partying like that?
Exactly.
And still keep working. If you're on the East Coast, if you're on Broadway or off Broadway, or you're touring with a show, or you're doing one night stand nightclub stuff, you go to the show, you do your best, you eat something after the show, you play the star and sign autographs, you go home and collapse and stay in bed till 3 or 4 o'clock the next day and begin to warm up your voice and warm up your body to go out there and do it again. And on your one day off a week, you collapse. Wow. So this idea of partying, if it exists mostly in the music business.
Okay.
Because if you're recording and you're only making one record a year, really, or one album a year, you got lots of time to play. And yes, there's tons of drugs in the music business. There are still drugs in show business. Almost every film has a drug budget, some cash they put aside in case somebody needs a little help finishing their day's work.
Yeah.
But I've never known anybody to become a star. There have been people, more men than women actually, who took off their clothes just to get the first break. I mean, people you would never dream of. Ronald Reagan, Clark Gable. Wow. Like, they got naked to get their careers started. And not always with women. Not because they were gay, but because they would do anything to get the career started. Because in those days, it was a contract you got. You belonged to a movie studio. It wasn't for one part in one film. Nobody can afford to give away a part to somebody who isn't any good. You're shooting yourself in the foot because your movie will be lousy and then there won't be another time. People who are in the business, 90% of us are hardworking professionals who have learned our craft. We show up ready to work and do our jobs and hopefully be excellent. Even with talking with you, we had mentioned, folks who were watching and listening, I only knew about this interview about 2 hours ago. It came about very quickly.
Likewise.
Well, I got myself handsome for you. I got myself sparkly for you. And I'm here to do the best possible job I can to make your show wonderful. That's what a professional does. The wild stuff is for amateurs and people who are mentally ill, I think, a little bit. Because you do that stuff, you shoot yourself in the foot.
Wow, yeah, that's deep. And were you born and raised in Brooklyn and then left and went to Hollywood or LA?
No, there was a little more circuitous. There's the word. Circuitous than that. Okay. I was born and raised mostly in Brooklyn. My father had problems. So we left Brooklyn. We were in Tucson for a little while. We were in Los Angeles for a couple of years.
Moved around.
Where I was as a child. They came after me to be in show business. My talent exhibited itself even then. And I was offered 3 major things, including a studio contract at Desilu. And my parents turned them all down. Then we moved back to New York. Then we moved to a suburb of Baltimore called Randallstown. And that's where I went to high school. And that's where I met Joel. And that's where my life changed. Because Joel led me into professional show business. And my sister from another mister, her beautiful, the prettiest girl I've ever known, Phyllis Limpert Viana, took me to my first professional audition at 15. And I wasn't auditioning as a kid. I went to an audition for Little Abner and auditioned for an adult part. I played Mayor Dogmeat. That's how I got into professional show business. And after that, it was just one thing after another. Wherever I was, opportunities presented themselves and I grabbed them. I'm an ambitious guy.
And I know
that's the other thing about show business. You've got to be ambitious. You can't Oh, I'll dabble a little over here, and then I want a week's. No, no, it's every. People say, "What do you do on your weekends?" I work. What do you do
Right.
on holidays? I work. I work all the time. I carve out time for my personal life. I'm always there for my kids and grandkids. I have many, many friends, most of them in show business. So I see them when we're working together.
Hmm.
But like I said, sequins cost money.
Now, when you first started, and I hear you saying you worked. When you first started in show business, how often did you work? Was it constantly, all day, every day, or you had? I know you had some days off, but sometimes when you first start, people like to go hard with working, working, working.
I was in high school still when I got my first professional job. So I went to school during the week and then went from school to do a show every night. So I was working an awful lot. Summer stock, you work as you get the work and you go on tour and you tour for 2 or 3 months or longer. If you're in an off-Broadway show, it's 8 shows a week. It's
Mm.
7 days a week. Sorry, 6 days a week, but two of the days have matinees. So you're doing 8 shows a week, and when you're not working, you're working at working to get the next job. So really, you mentioned my working on cruise ships. That was probably the softest thing because you went on a ship for a week or 10 days. You did 1 or 2 shows, and I'd always volunteer to do extra stuff. Well,
Mhm.
the days you're not actually on the stage performing, what a lot of performers do is just sleep. They take that as a time to plug in and recharge themselves. I was like, I'm here. I might as well perform. So I would do extra shows, extra things. I'd be the Easter bunny in a costume if I had to, because I don't want to just sit around. I want to make the folks happy. I love performing for people.
Mhm.
Even what
But
we're doing now, I love doing this.
interviews. Wow. Did you miss half of your childhood by chasing this dream? Like, can you honestly say that you did miss?
No,
Okay.
no,
Okay.
but my situation was special.
Okay.
I missed half of my childhood because my parents were mentally ill and I had to grow up very fast. I missed half of my childhood because uh, I was kicked out at 15.
Yeah, you did say that. Yeah.
So, um, early childhood was lovely. My father wasn't completely out of his mind. My mother wasn't so stressed out. We lived in a house with my maternal grandparents and my great grandmother. So there was loving family around. And then, like, the day Kennedy got assassinated, from that point forward, there wasn't a whole lot of joy at home anymore.
Okay.
And, when your parents are mentally ill and abusing alcohol and drugs and abusing you, the childhood is over. Innocence is gone. Once, for those of you who think uh, kids are sexually attractive, once you touch a child and you flip that switch in them, you can't take it back. You can't give back a child his or her innocence. That's it. What
Mhm.
kind of language am I allowed to use here? Give me a clue.
I don't really do too much cursing on here, so
Okay.
if you can use other
I will,
words.
I will use other words. You're
Yeah.
screwed.
Exactly.
As a child, you are screwed. Once someone touches you, there'd better be some sort of psychologist's couch with your name on it because you've got stuff to unpack. And happily for me, I'm talking about it. I don't pretend like none of it happened. I just don't live in it anymore. It's
Yep.
long ago, it's far away.
Okay.
And I share about it to help other people, but I have no pain sharing this with you or our friends out there who are watching and listening to us.
Yeah, and also I wanted to know how long did you harbor that in? Did that almost make you hate a lot of people? Because sometimes when you mad at one thing, you kind of take it out on other people. Not that you did. I'm just asking,
No,
how long did you harbor that pain in? And
that's a wonderful question. Um, I think people go to the one or two extremes. The one you're talking about, they go, I hate everybody up here,
Everybody.
right? Or I want the whole world to love me.
Hmm.
I went that route. I was a people pleaser. I let people use me, hoping they'd accept me, like me, embrace me. My parents were not happy that I'm gay or any part of that. They were not happy I was in show business or any part of that. So I couldn't go to my parents and get, oh, Jeff, good job. We're so proud. No,
Wow.
they may have said that to other people, but
But
when the
not you.
doors were closed,
Mhm.
what a shame I was. I was shameful to them. And how dare I, blah, blah, blah. So I was a people pleaser. And I took drugs and alcohol to mask my pain.
Like cope, you had to cope through that.
Well, you don't really cope. You think you're coping because
Okay.
your symptoms are getting masked. But the
Yeah.
problem is still there, whether you mask it or not.
Mhm.
You have to like pull the problem out into the light and look at it and go, oh, this problem isn't as big as I thought it was. I shouldn't be afraid of dealing with it. And I have, with 12-step programs and psychology and some good mentors who had wonderful advice, able to deal with it. I like to call it name it, claim it, dump it. I
Yeah.
found out what it was. I owned the emotions attached, and then I let go. Because being angry, let's say you and I have an argument, and I get just terribly angry with you. Yeah? What good does that do me? It's like taking poison and expecting you to drop dead.
Exactly.
So having
Exactly.
that kind of deep set angers and resentments, it is kind of like an emotional poison. I don't want to live like that. I want to be filled with love.
Mhm.
I want my light to shine. And I live a life that I do that. Doesn't mean I'm anybody's fool. Doesn't mean that I allow people to use me. Doesn't mean that I don't cut people off out of my life if they turn out to be toxic. But I don't carry around resentment. I let them go with love and
Yeah.
move forward.
There we go. That's how you do it because a lot of people now has mental issues because of the fact that they're bitter and they hold this bitterness in and they miss their opportunities for blessings because they push everyone away because of what happened with them.
Yeah.
And I know it could be rough. It could be rough because I too was kicked out at 14. Me and my sister. So I know what it's like to be put out by your parents, someone that birthed you. So that's what happened to me. The same thing. But I turned out okay. I turned out
Obviously.
great. Yeah. So
Handsome, healthy, and you have your own show. Hooray for you.
and I'm still pushing. I'm not giving up. This is what I love to do, and I'm going to keep at it. Stay prayed up. You know
Why do anything else?
exactly.
We get one life.
One life.
Why would we do anything other than our passion in life? What makes our soul feel happy or complete or in some way, yeah, yeah, this is what I was brought to this planet for. I was
Mhm.
brought to this planet to spread love and to entertain people, whether it's by singing or telling jokes or writing or producing or having a talk show of my own or being on yours. I'm here to make folks happy.
That's wonderful.
Yay!
That's wonderful. And have you also written jokes, written comedy for other comedians?
Oh, sure, sure.
Okay. Are you still doing that now?
Um, the people I used to write for, this sounds terrible. They're all dead.
Oh wow.
Um, well, I try really hard to surround myself with people who are smarter than I, more talented than I, if I can, to
Hmm.
learn from them. So I wrote for a lot of wonderful, wonderful people,
Okay.
whether it was actually sitting down at a computer and writing lines or just sitting in a room with people bantering stuff back and forth to come up with the right line. Now I mostly write for me. Um, but I started writing for myself originally as a teenager. I remember the first joke I told, and I don't think this is naughty. I think this is okay for your audience. The only thing you have to know to understand the joke and to get it is that this is the 1970s, and there was a company called Playtex. And Playtex made women's underwear, brassieres and girdles and panties, and they made gloves to wash dishes with. And they called it Playtex Living Gloves, Playtex Living Bra, Playtex Living Panties, Playtex Living Girdle. And especially if you were a housewife and you were home all day, you heard these commercials. Every other commercial was Playtex. So the joke was, and I'm always honest with my audiences. So at 17, I told them what was mostly true. I said, I don't really have a father. I reach an age where I'm on my own. I'm a man about town in Manhattan. And my mother was concerned for me. She didn't have the right words, but she got across I had to have protection. Protection. I finally figured it out. So I cut off the fingers of my mother's Playtex Living Gloves. I didn't improve my sex life any, but I became the first kid on the block with dishpan penis.
I hear that, man.
That was the first joke I wrote.
That was the first joke you wrote. How do you come up with the material? Like, I always want to know how does a comedian come up with that stuff?
In that case, it worked backwards. I was watching one of those Playtex commercials.
Okay, that's
dishpan hands. Ooh, she's got dishpan hands. And my mind just immediately said dishpan penis. Well, how do you get dishpan penis? And I worked backwards so that I could set up the jokes. The punchline was dishpan penis. Other cases, it's just looking at the world and looking at something crooked, thinking crooked. I don't mean crooked like a thief, but like not straight on, taking a bend in the road in my mind. And that's how I wrote the jokes.
Wow. Is it hard trying to come up with the material, just like writing a song? Is it kind of difficult to actually write a song, even if you like in some type of depressed mode? It seems like songs come out better when you're depressed or sad. I don't know why it's like that, but is it hard for you sometimes? Like,
it's easier for me to write lyrics to an already established melody. Writing lyrics on its own and having somebody else put music to it is more difficult. Now, here's an opportunity that presented itself that I had to let go of because, act of God, I was producing and writing a documentary about I Love Lucy. And long before this, the great Steve Allen and I became friends. So I was interviewing him on camera for this documentary, and we were, the lights were getting put away and my crew was leaving. He said, Jeff, you write lyrics? I said, yeah, I do. He said, you know what? I've got 100 tunes I've written, because he was a big time composer, that have no lyrics to them. Let me send you the 100. Pick out 10 that you like, put lyrics to them, and let's make an album of you and me singing these songs. Well, happy day. 3 days later, Steve was dead.
Wow.
And I contacted, well, he was in a car accident. I contacted his wife, Jane Meadows. I said, hey, I would still love it. She said, Jeffrey, I don't know which 100 he meant, and I don't know which 10 he'd want, and I can't talk for Steve about your lyrics. So the opportunity was an act of God. He died, and that opportunity went away with him. But boy, would I have loved to have done that, because Steve Allen was one of my mentors and really helped me out.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, you were all over the place, and you also hosted 2 radio series. Now, can you tell me about hosting 2 radio series in Los Angeles?
Three
radio series.
Well, the first one was called, Taking the High Road. And I co-hosted it with my friend Paul Peterson, who was Jeff on the Donna Reed show. And it was heard in 82 cities on the air, as opposed to cable or platforms.
Yeah.
And we dealt with celebrities who were in recovery from overeating, sex compulsion, drinking, drugs, gambling, whatever. I had a ball doing it. But we found out, Paul and I did, that the people who were producing this weren't clean and sober. We went to a production meeting with them about a year in, and they order all this booze at lunch. And Paul and I don't drink.
Lunchtime, huh? Wow.
And so we said, That's it, baby. We are done because you people are liars.
Mhm.
The second show was on locally in Los Angeles, KRLA, and that was the Geoffrey Mark show. What a ball I had doing that. Once a week for 2 hours, I did a live variety show. I had on
Wow.
singers, I had on comedians, I did a monologue, I had celebrity guests, and if there wasn't enough to fill, we played records
Mhm.
and took questions from the audience. What a wonderful, wonderful time I had doing that.
Wow.
And now I'm doing a show. It's on platforms and on about a dozen radio shows around the country.
Mhm.
Geoffrey Mark plays Ella, where I every week we play Ella on a theme. Ella sings the songs of Frank Sinatra, or Ella and Joe Pass, the world's greatest jazz guitarist. And I talk about what was going on backstage when these things were being made and why these songs were chosen and historically why they're valuable. And because I did work for the lady at the end of her life, it really is insider stories. And I've written 2 books about her. So I talk with authority, and I'm told people are really enjoying the show. So that's my current show. Geoffrey Mark plays Ella.
Wow.
Found on platforms everywhere and about a dozen radio stations.
Wow. So working at the radio stations is like, I know out in LA, it was like bigger for you because and when you're LA, it seemed like that's where all the stars are. And can you honestly say that you had your big shot when you moved to LA doing the radio, doing just other things and
No,
television?
I think I could have broken through just because I was already breaking through in New York. If I hadn't gone into drugs and alcohol, if I would have had a little more maturity and drug and alcohol free, I honestly have no doubt I would have ended up starring in a Broadway show and maybe Broadway musicals and plays. That would have been all of my life. So maybe I wouldn't have done the other things I've done since then. But I I think if you have talent and you work your behind off with burning ambition, you break through somehow. This is how it happened for me. Um, there are plenty of opportunities to do radio in New York. There's opportunity to sing and do comedy in New York. Um, there are still movies being made there. There are people flying from LA to go to New York to be in films. So I think the opportunities would have been there. I was just too afraid, too immature, and too stoned to do anything about it.
To do anything about it. Wow. And your career, around the time when you were doing comedy, have you ever bombed on stage? And if so, how did you get out of that situation?
Here's a sad truth. The only time I've bombed under 2 different situations. One was my mother and father used to come to my shows if I was doing it in New York
Mhm.
and heckle me.
Wow.
Like they'd heard these jokes before,
Mhm.
and my father would shout out my punchlines before I could get to them. And my mother would stand
Oh.
up and go, "See, his father has all the talent in the family."
Oh. Wow. Wow.
What do
It
you
it,
do
it,
with that?
it kind of threw you off. It threw everything off. Wow.
And once on a cruise ship, um, I was asked to fill in as a cruise director. So besides doing my own shows, to be there all week long, or for 10 days actually, up and down the Mexican Riviera, making people happy. Well, a bunch of people got on the ship who are anti-Semitic and probably homophobic.
Mhm.
And they let me know that they did not approve of me. They wanted some nice, straight Christian guy to be their cruise director. And they did not want me, and they did not laugh at me, and they complained to the ship and to the ship's company about me.
Wow.
Other than that, I've never bombed. I love being in front of the people, and the people know it. And I can make people laugh, and I can sing. So there's no bombing. I have had small audiences,
Yeah.
not in a long time. But I remember in the 70s, if you would appear in a nightclub in New York, a small one, And, sometimes the second show, because they make you do two, isn't filled. And there was one evening, one man came. I had one person in the audience. I
Hmm.
did my entire show for him,
With
full
one
out,
person. Wow.
full out, because he paid to get in.
Yeah.
I'm there. Why not do my show? If nothing else, I got a great dress rehearsal out of it. But you know
Wow.
what? He loved it, and the people who owned the club loved it. That I didn't blow him off. I didn't make fun. I did my show just
Right.
for him.
If you can't be faithful to one, you can't be faithful to 1,000. That's
Yeah.
can you tell me about you were the producer of, is it Nigel?
No, God bless.
Like come back to me.
Yes, I was at a pool party out here I live in Palm Springs.
Okay.
And I was at a pool party, and this British man, who I knew who he was there with his husband, and he'd been out of the business for a while. He'd been a hit in England in the 60s, uh, touring in Broadway shows and nightclub work, and he was a recording, not a big star, but a known person in the 60s. And he wanted his career back, which is why the name of the album was Come Back to Me. And they wanted it to be not pop music like he was playing when he was young. They wanted it in the Sinatra style. They wanted it in the Great American Songbook style. And they asked me to produce it. I chose the songs, and I hired 17 musicians and made an orchestra and produced the album. They excused themselves from publicity immediately. It's like, huh? The album's coming out and you're leaving? They had to go on vacation. It was stupid, as it turns out, because Nigel caught something in Europe and died.
Wow.
And the album was, DOA. It was dead on arrival because without him to promote it, there was no album.
But you still also have credits on the album.
I do. I'm a producer.
And the residual or whatever the what is the checks? The checks you get.
Yeah, well, but again, who's going to buy it? If you can't promote something,
You can't promote.
if people don't know the product exists,
Yeah.
it just sits there. It's why we all have publicists and managers, because we can't do all of this on our own. I have the best publicist in the world, Harlan Boll. Harlan Boll, Boll. If you need a publicist, contact this man. He's the best. I worked so hard on that album. And as it turned out, it led to nothing for me financially. I was paid up front. I got upfront money and money to spend on what I needed to spend it on. But
Yeah.
an album like that, had it clicked, would have been an annuity for me.
Wow. Wow. And how many cuts were on the album?
I want to say 14 or 15.
Okay. Okay.
A CD only holds so much music. So we filled a CD, filled it. All new arrangements and top shelf stuff.
Something that I never understood about signing to a label or allowing a record company to take over your work. I know back then a lot of people, even Michael Jackson, have gotten ripped off. Prince ripped off everybody. Why is it that when you get with these labels, is it written in the contract that we going to rob you, and it's something that you guys have missed, or do they let you know up front you're not going to get everything that you deserve?
Okay, now, do you really think that anybody would sign a contract where it says clause 16B, we're going to rob you? It's not that blatant.
How is it written? I mean, I just would like to know.
I'll tell you. I'll give you a good example. You've heard of Frida Payne.
Frida Payne.
Frida Payne, delightful African-American pop and jazz singer. All that's left is a band of gold. That was her big song.
Okay, that's a big song. That's a hit.
Okay. She's never received one penny for it. Now, she recorded that in the 70s. And all these years later, the recording label is telling her she owes them money for production costs.
See?
because they play fast and loose. She didn't have a good agent or manager negotiate the contract for her.
Mm.
When Michael Jackson went off from his brothers and wanted to record by himself, he thought, wow, I've been in this business all my life. And Michael had 11 trillion mental health problems. So it took Quincy Jones to straighten that out for him. Michael made plenty of money. Don't cry for Michael's death, cry for Michael's mental illness, but don't cry for Michael not getting paid. Michael ended up getting paid
Yeah, he ended up.
plenty.
Hmm. Yeah, I know, but I know a lot of us artists, a lot of artists that's been signed to labels. They don't seem to get everything that they deserve. Never. It's just
You
unless
have
you.
to have a really good Barracuda show business attorney. Look at every contract you sign.
Mhm.
Every time I haven't done that, there's been a big problem. And every time I've let an attorney look at it up front, no problems.
Okay.
You learn. You learn. Not everybody is honest. Not everybody is nice.
Mhm.
People are selfish and greedy. And the people who don't have any real talent of their own, but want to make money off of your talent, yeah, they're leeches. They're the worst.
Wow. Wow. It's sad.
It
And
is sad.
can you tell me about the Elvis? You did Elvis show at the Spy Casino. Was it like a play? It was in Palm Springs with Elvis.
Again, an opportunity that should have gone better. Somebody contacted me here in the desert, and this is not the truth, but this is what I was told.
Okay.
We have this really great Elvis impersonator. He's wonderful. But he's, over 40 and his career is over and he can't get booked in Las Vegas where he's been working for the last 20 years. And we think if you would write a script that included his music and Marilyn Monroe,
Hmm.
we'll bring him. You direct it. You direct your script. And then I said, it could be Marilyn for 6 weeks. It could be Lucille Ball for 6 weeks. It could be Frank Sinatra for 6 weeks. We could make this thing run forever. And what is now called Agua Caliente Palm Springs Casino was then called the Spa Casino. And they had a lounge that had no show in it. And this guy who came to me, promoter, sold the show to them.
Wow.
But another person who didn't know what he was doing, and then he lied to the Elvis guy because the Elvis guy had plenty of work.
Mhm.
And all the money that should have gone up on stage, he got Elvis guy and a live-in assistant. He got Elvis guy a 3-story townhouse to live in. It's like,
Wow.
no, put him in a hotel, get the show running, and then from the profits you do that.
Then you do all of that. The profits.
And then Elvis guy wasn't. I'm leaving his name out because he's a very nice man, and I don't want to. He's got a wonderful career in Las Vegas. I don't want any bad on him at all. No shade on him at all. He wasn't told any of this. He moved in, and was told he's doing his nightclub act.
Wow.
And didn't want to learn the lines and didn't want to play with Marilyn Monroe. We had to keep firing one Marilyn after another because he didn't like them. And eventually he just did his nightclub act. And he's very good, but nobody came because it was the wrong venue. It was the wrong time of the day. And Palm Springs, like Las Vegas, has seen so many Elvis impersonators. With the wonderful thing he did was on stage while he sang a medley, he painted a portrait of Elvis.
Wow.
That was something to watch. He's a handsome, lovely, talented man, and this producer guy screwed both of us. He and I are still in touch, and neither one of us talk to the producer anymore.
Wow. So
What do you do?
we had to cut ties, huh? It was over. Hmm. Well, we have Geoffrey Mark. I'm sorry, Geoffrey Mark. The man. Yeah, I'm sorry. You a producer, a singer, a writer for television. Now you did I Love Lucy, Cheers, The Addams Family, The Bob Newhart Show, Saint Elsewhere. Hill Street Blues. Am I correct?
Those were all documentaries I wrote and produced.
Okay. Now, about Hill Street Blues, is it based on the TV show Hill Street Blues?
Well, all of these documentaries were about these TV shows.
Okay.
So it was how the shows came about, how they were written, who was in it, what happened backstage, why they're popular. So each one was my interviewing all these people and then writing the script that went with it and editing it all together so it was a cohesive story.
So you
A lot
actually,
a lot of fun to do and it paid very well.
I can imagine, and you also actually was around the cast, like
Oh
writing,
sure.
interviewing them. Oh
Oh
wow.
sure.
And how was that? How was their demeanor, their attitude, like just being around them people? Because I'm thinking about the Adams family. I don't know. I mean, what is it, Henry the monster, the father.
That's the Munsters, Herman.
That's the Herman the monster. How was that just being around those different characters like that?
Well, they were much older because these shows aired. Most of these shows that we did aired in the 60s and 70s and 80s.
60s, yeah.
Um, there is a wonderful word in show business, gravitas. And when someone can say, hey, he's written best-selling books, Emmy, Grammy, that gives you gravitas. They take you seriously. And when they saw that I wasn't looking for dirt, I was looking to tell a good story about these wonderful shows,
Mhm.
they were happy to come in and talk to me about them or have me go to their sets and talk to them.
Mhm.
Um, in some cases, I already knew them. In some cases, a few cases, one in particular, I met somebody who changed my life. Doing the Bob Newhart one, I met Jack Riley. Jack Riley played. This was the sitcom where Bob played a psychologist in Chicago, married to Suzanne Plachette, and Jack Riley was his craziest client,
Wow.
and we just hit it off on camera. Jack asked me out, and Jack wasn't gay, but the last several years of his life, we spent a great deal of time together. And I won't go into any details. We were as close as two men could be. And when he got ill with MS, I was there to help take care of him. And because of Jack that I got into the Friars Club in Beverly Hills. It was through Jack that I got into Yarmy's Army, which is a group of very famous comedians and comedy writers and comedy directors. So and then knowing Jack
What
and
is it like?
having,
I'm sorry. It's like a comedy club.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
uh, my stock rose in show business. And I'm having dinners with people like Jonathan Winters and people of that ilk who are top-notch comedians. Pat Harrington, Don Knotts. I became friends with Don Knotts and Louis Nye and Shelley Berman. And something just occurred to me, and it never occurred to me before. There were no African Americans in the group. I never stopped to ask myself why until just now. I do know that a lot of the younger guys didn't want to. They didn't want to join the Friars Club. They didn't want to join these groups. It was too old fashioned for them.
Okay.
Because I reached out to some African American comedians and some Asian comedians and some Latinos. And they just no, that's too old fashioned for me.
Okay. Okay. Well, you've been around the world, and you have a lot. I mean, your resume just goes and goes. So I know presenting that to someone is just no brainer after seeing all the work that you have done. And also, can you tell me about Fighting Mad? My,
Sure.
my favorite year. Yeah, just let's go to Fighting Mad first. What was that about?
That was about being the luckiest son of a bitch on the planet. And I actually going to look something up for you because I was in Arkansas doing summer stock and also taking classes at the university. And I was walking along the campus, and two people that I had done shows with there literally cut me off. Like they come onto the sidewalk and stop me. I said, "What are you doing?" They said, "There's a guy here making a film with Peter Fonda. They're looking for a character. They could have described you perfectly. Get in the car." I got in the car and was brought to the set. They were shooting it on location. And I was introduced to the assistant director, whose name I can't remember. He took my picture. He talked to me a little bit. "Well, we'll get in touch with you." I started to walk away and I heard, "Hey, you, the orange hair, wait a minute." And it was Jonathan Demme.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it was like, this was like the first, any kind of a major thing Jonathan had done. And he said, can you act the gossip? Can you play a hayseed? Can you wear overalls and, pull your hair back and look stupid and react to a whole bunch of stuff? I said, "Yeah, of course I can." And that was the film. I was the guy who was always there reacting to Peter Fonda. Problem was, Peter was also having a drug problem at that age. I was only 16. And it's hard to react to something if nobody's there. So it was not a happy set. The drug budget was enormous to make him happy. And I am happy to say that Peter and I remained friends. He got clean and sober. And whenever I saw him through the years, whether I saw him at Musso and Frank's, which is a very famous restaurant in Hollywood, or at the Friars Club, or an industry event, he always apologized to me. All the years out. And he ended up being a very fine actor and a lovely human being. And that was my first film.
Wow. You know what I find interesting is like while the drugs was going on, did you still have the energy to work, or it was because you have to feed your habit? Like while doing drugs, it's like people still will do showbiz, but I would think that they will fall off for a while and then try to come back.
There's no one story. Everybody has different stories. What happened to me was my drug of choice in the beginning was marijuana.
Okay.
And marijuana, like anything else, can do a lot of good for people. I'm not against marijuana, although I'm one of the founders of Marijuana Anonymous. But for 10% of the people who smoke it, they will get addicted to it. Like 10% of the people who drink become alcoholics.
Okay. Yeah.
And I got paranoid. I got lazy. Marijuana is a thief. That burning ambition I keep talking about, it left the room. It was just easier to stay home and get high and get laid and eat ice cream and cookies than it was to go out and work hard and be out in the freezing cold New York and go to the show. And I just stopped showing up. I get booked in clubs and not be there. A record company brought me in. They wanted to hear me singing jazz. I didn't show up for the audition. Well, if you don't show up, that's it. Show business is not terribly forgiving. If you're unprofessional, that gets around really quickly. That's why it was such a miracle for me that show business took me back at the age of 30. And that I've done so well since then. Again, knock on wood, that I'm not trying to be trite or cliche when I call myself the luckiest son of a bitch on the planet. I have known true love. I will never have to say, "Oh, it never happened for me." It happened for me with a man who was magic. And when it was good, it was wonderful. And it was bad, it was only bad because he was stoned and he was on pills. I've known his career that's brought me so much joy. I've traveled the world. He keeps saying, "I'm a world traveler." I've traveled the world for free on somebody else's dime working.
Wow.
Lucky. And all these things I keep telling you about, where I was in the right place at the right time. I was prepared. I had worked on my skills and my craft, but I showed up and suited up and like, "Hey, Jeff, you're in this show. Hey, if we had a little something extra, can you?" Yes. Whatever it is, yes. This is a cute story. My very first Actors Equity show was to tour in a children's show, Robin Hood. Okay. And the producer was Kay Rockefeller, the Rockefeller family. Mm-hmm. And the idea was we toured with another show. So at night, there was this Tennessee Williams play they were trying out, The Eccentricities of a Nightingale. with Chris Reeve and Betsy Palmer. During the day, we did a matinee for children. And I went to this audition, and they hired me. About 2 hours later, I get this phone call. If we messenger you a script, can you be ready to perform tomorrow morning? Somebody fell out at the last second, and I fit the costume. That's all it was. I had orange hair. I had a beard. I played King Richard, and I played 2 different parts. And we go through the first one, and the first one was in a theater in the Round. And I get through it, and I'm so thrilled with myself. Now we're traveling up the East Coast, going up towards Maine and Cape Cod and all this stuff. And she hands me more pages. And I said, what's this? She said, oh, this is the part of the script we couldn't do because of the theater in the Round. You're a trained actor. You know how to use a bow and arrow, don't you? Well, 500 miles from home and 17 years old. What am I going to say? No?
Yeah.
All I knew about bow and arrows was reading the Green Arrow comic book when I was a kid. So we got to the destination. I tried to rehearse with it like nobody sees me. I couldn't make it work. I said, the theater is magic. It'll happen on stage. We get to that point in the show. And I take the thing and I draw it back and I close my eyes and let go.
Let it go.
And the arrow stays in my hand and the bow goes flying off stage into the wings.
Wow.
Pandemonium breaks out. The parents in the audience know what happened. They got that I screwed up on stage. The kids, they're laughing at their parents laughing so hard. And this cartoon thing that just happened live in front of them.
That's right.
We got through the show. We had to finish it. I mean, for 5 minutes, we couldn't do anything. All they were doing was screaming and yelling and applauding and screaming. We get backstage. And the producer, Kay, you can see the steam coming out of her ears. You can hear old sitcom music. Dun, 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 dun. And she gets closer and closer to me. What did you do to my show? And in my ear, she says, can you do that again? So I did it again.
Wow. So she liked it, huh?
She didn't like what I did to the script because I think she wrote it. But she realized that kind of comedy gold, you can't buy that. And I did it for a whole summer, all over the country. I still can't shoot a bow and arrow. But nobody's ever asked since. I've never tried.
Wow, that's amazing. That story was very interesting. Wow. So what's next? I mean, you done did everything. It seemed like you traveled the world. You show business. You were here, your TV show, radio stations. What's next for you?
I would like to do some more acting. I have a new manager, Ro Brooks, who you know, and that's how I got on this show today. He thinks it's time for me to become an actor again. That this visage, this persona, what I've come up with, my image through the years. He sees me doing commercials and plays and musicals and that kind of thing. And I'm certainly up for it. I've got these 3 books to finish. I have the album coming out. I've got my radio show. I think if it were up to me, I would, after these books are done, stop writing. It's a little too solitary for me and get out there. I would love to be doing live theater, singing in clubs. Stand up, I don't know, because although I do know the dirty words, I don't use them very often. And you're almost expected when you're in a nightclub today, performing for people who have been drinking. They want to hear sex jokes. They want to hear penis jokes. They want to hear, my wife is so fat that, and then some kind of sexual connotation. That's not really my style. So I think I'd love to be out there singing in nightclubs and concerts. I'd love to sing with a symphony orchestra. I want to act and make lots of money for Ro Brooks and myself. And maybe not work quite so hard. Make more money and work a little less. And I've got a 5-year-old grandson, Abe, I adore. My other one is going to be 17, Ben. He's out the door any minute. He's ready to get on with life. But the little one, I'd like to spend some quality time with the little one. So I think that's my future. And my Joel died 3.5 years ago. I'd like to meet a wonderful companion and grow old with somebody. That's still on my bucket list of things to do.
Okay. Cool. All
So
right.
send me your resumes, people. I'm looking for a partner.
For a person who would like to get in showbiz, um, just want to travel and read scripts and get into the filming and maybe do Broadway, what positive message will you give them?
Be prepared. There is no such thing as failure
Mhm.
except not showing up.
Okay.
Stay wherever you are. Take acting classes, take singing classes, do summer stock, do um, anything you can locally and save your money. And then take yourself to either New York or Los Angeles and come with like 10,000 in your pocket
Yeah.
and learn about the business of the business. Every year, COVID aside, about 10,000 people come to LA to be actors. 9,950 of them never work. Not because the business is awful and not because they're untalented, they're unprepared.
Wow.
They don't know anybody, they've never taken lessons, they have no skills with which to make money. They're more concerned with having fun with their boyfriend or girlfriend or going surfing or getting a tan than they are with working. If you don't need to be in show business, don't do it
Don't
because your
do it.
competition needs. I need to be in show business. I've known since I was 2 years old that I
Hmm.
was going into show business. There
Wow.
was no other choice for me. So if that's you, learn and then meet people like me because I help people because I have been helped by so many wonderful people like Lucy Arnaz and Kay Ballard and Carol Channing and Steve Allen and Jack Carter. The list goes on who have mentored me and believed in me.
Hmm.
So I believe in others. Find yourself a guy like me, but don't come to me green and don't come to me broke.
I hear that. Well said. This is Geoffrey Mark. If you go and you can look at his bio, you can go to YouTube. You also have the with the Hollywood Museum. You did an interview with them.
Oh, many, many, many. I'm proudly
Yeah,
part of the Hollywood Museum family.
yeah.
There was a building in Hollywood, right near Grauman's Chinese Theater, and next door to Mel's Diner. So it's a well placed building, and it used to be the Max Factor building, the very famous makeup artists for show business for films and television. It's where Lucille Ball became a redhead, for instance. And a wonderful woman named Donnell Dadigan bought it and turned it into a museum for all things Hollywood and show business. And they've got floor after floor of these wonderful displays. They do these salutes to different in various and sundry things. I'm happy to say that things of mine are on display at the museum.
Mhm.
And I go to everything they do because I support it so much. And if you're in Hollywood, you're going to kick yourself unless you go to the Hollywood Museum. And I don't get paid for saying this. I'm not a paid employee of theirs. I just love it. And I'm really glad you asked.
Wow, wonderful. Well said once again. Viewers, we have Geoffrey Mark. He was the guest. This man has a lot going on. It was a pleasure to have you on the show, and I really appreciate that. Anything you want to give the viewers, like your social media handles, Facebook, you can let them know now so they can
Well,
find
come on Facebook. Just look up Geoffrey Mark, GeoffreyMark. On Instagram, it's Geoffrey Mark Showbiz. On Twitter, it's at Geoffrey Mark. And I'll answer your questions. You know, I'm very accessible. I won't say what I said I won't talk about because it's a little naughty. There's only two things I won't talk about with people. And if you ask me about any of those, you shouldn't be talking to me anyway. But
you.
anything else, I'm happy to talk about
Mhm.
and share and help.
Wow, great. I thank you for coming on to the show. This is A Vision Entertainment Media Broadcast. You can catch me on Xfinity Comcast Network channel 967 HD 66. Also Roku, Apple TV. You can also and Verizon Fios also. This is A Vision Entertainment Media. Our special guest was Geoffrey Mark today. You can check him out all over social media. And I thank you so much, Jeff, for this. And hope that we see each other again and do another one.
Next time, we'll talk about my experiences in Philadelphia, your hometown.
Oh, man. Wow. I forgot. The next show will be about that. I will have him on again, and we're going to talk more. It will be a part 2 with Geoffrey Mark.
There you go.